Welcome to my bold and beautiful today's show channel. I hope today fantastic for everyone. Please hit the subscribes button and give this video thumbs up. Ridge explodes at Eric and Brooke for fashion show manipulation. The bold and the beautiful reveal. Ridge confronts Eric and Brooke about their manipulative fashion show stunt featuring the Portofino gown, leaving both shocked when he calls out their manufactured nostalgia. Life isn't your runway. Ridge finally snaps at Eric's fashion show manipulation. Oh my goodness. If you thought the bold and the beautiful couldn't possibly pack more drama into a fashion show, Thursday's episode just proved you gloriously wrong. The explosive fallout from Eric Forrester and Brooke Logan's staged Portofino gown moment has finally erupted, and Ridge Forrester is not having it anymore. The Portofino ploy that went spectacularly wrong. Let's back up for a hot second. Last week's Forrester fashion show finale on April 25th featured Brooke strutting down the runway in a reimagined version of her iconic Portofino gown, the one that symbolized the height of bridge romance back in 2003. Not exactly subtle, right? This wasn't just any fashion moment. Eric deliberately orchestrated this whole thing, swapping out the original model specifically so Brooke could make her grand entrance and trigger all those nostalgic feels in Ridge. Talk about manipulation disguised as haute couture. For a brief, glittery moment, it seemed like their scheming might actually work. Ridge appeared genuinely moved by the vision of his ex-wife in that symbolic gown. I mean, who wouldn't get a little misty-eyed at such a blatant callback to happier times? But here's where it gets juicy. By May 1st, Ridge had fully processed what happened at that fashion show, and boy, was he fuming. You think life is your runway? It isn't. In Thursday's episode, Ridge absolutely unloaded on Eric with what might be the most pointed reality check in soap history. You think life is your runway? It isn't. I nearly dropped my coffee when he said that. After decades of bouncing between Brooke and Taylor like a tennis ball, Ridge has apparently reached his breaking point with being manipulated. And honestly, good for him. What makes this confrontation so deliciously satisfying is seeing Eric's stunned face when he realized his master plan had completely backfired. Instead of rekindling romance, he ignited resentment. Classic soap karma. Brooke's repeated insistence that the fashion world wants us together, seriously, how many times did she say that? Only made things worse. Nothing says desperate quite like claiming an entire industry is invested in your love life, am I right? The Taylor factor. Meanwhile, poor Taylor Hayes has been watching this entire melodrama unfold from the sidelines. Remember how she and Brooke were accidentally locked in that storage room before the fashion show? Yeah, about as accidental as my third slice of cheesecake. What's fascinating is how Taylor's calm, steady presence stands in such stark contrast to Brooke's theatrical approach. After years of drama, Ridge seems to be genuinely valuing stability and authenticity, qualities that Taylor has in spades. When Taylor and Steffi watched Brooke's runway moment from behind the curtain, their concerned expressions weren't just jealousy, they were foreshadowing this spectacular blow-up. What happens next? The question on everyone's lips now is, where does Ridge go from here? Is this truly the final straw in the decades-long Bridge saga? With Ridge rejecting manufactured moments and seeking something real, we could be witnessing a genuine turning point for one of daytime's most notorious wafflers. And let's be honest, it's about time. Will Brooke double down on her desperate attempts to win him back? Can Eric repair the damage his meddling has caused to both his relationship with his son and to Brooke's chances? Or will this finally clear the path for Ridge and Taylor to build something genuine without theatrical interruptions? The supreme irony here is delicious. In trying to create the perfect romantic moment, Eric and Brooke may have permanently destroyed what they were trying to save. Talk about a fashion faux pas. Stay tuned, soap fans, because this fashion disaster is far from over. And if there's one thing I've learned from decades of watching soaps, it's that wounded pride leads to even more desperate measures. I can't wait to see what happens next. Brooke quits Forrester after Ridge's rejection, too heartbroken to stay? The bold and the beautiful reveal that Brooke Logan may quit Forrester after Ridge Forrester's rejection. Will Brooke eventually decide she's too heartbroken to stay? Despite Eric Forrester's predictions about Ridge ending up with Brooke, it looks like Ridge will choose Taylor Hayes instead. In fact, there's a good chance Ridge will propose to Taylor in the coming episodes. When Ridge reminded Eric of his commitment to Taylor, Eric acted like it wasn't much of one since he wasn't engaged or married to her. The writing's on the wall for Ridge to pop the question to Taylor and devastate Brooke in the process. Regardless, Ridge seems poised to turn down a Brooke reunion and make it clear to her that Taylor is the one he wants now. Brooke may find herself feeling crushed and embarrassed in the aftermath, so what does this mean for her future at Forrester Creations? Of course, Brooke has made a commitment of her own to Brooke's bedroom and all her other responsibilities at the company. However, there may come a point when Brooke fulfills her obligations and ultimately decides to remove herself from a painful environment. Working around Ridge day after day could become too much for Brooke to bear. Brooke's persistent feud with Steffi Forrester probably won't make things any easier, so there could be good reasons for Brooke to resign from Forrester Creations. Brooke will do some soul-searching and use Nick Marone as a lifeline when he returns to B&B this June. Maybe Nick could help Brooke figure out a new career path in addition to the romantic reunion that's ahead of them. Whatever the case, Brooke will deal with some tough Ridge rejection news and struggle to move on, so quitting Forrester is certainly an option for her. Perhaps Brooke will make some updates to her life in more ways than one. The bold and the beautiful spoilers say Brooke will need someone to lift her out of all the sadness. Is Nick better off with Taylor or Brooke or someone entirely different? The bold and the beautiful reveal that fans last saw Nick Marone on the LA-based CBS soap 13 years ago. That's about to change, with the dashing gents return to the screen this summer. It's a no-brainer that a man this handsome and talented will get second glances from the show's leading ladies, and plenty of fans think that he will reunite with ex-wife Brooke Logan. But what if it's ex-wife Taylor Hayes that he chooses? Brick or tick? During Nick and Taylor's marriage they had a son, Jack. Except that they didn't. In actuality, Brooke is Jack's mom. It's complicated. When the truth came out, Brooke understandably wanted to spend time with Jack, causing a strain in Tick's marriage. Taylor didn't bond with Jack and so she gave him to Nick, and they left to sail the high seas. What will happen when Nick comes back to LA? He will have to confront both exes and may have trouble deciding what to do if the women fight over him. Nick returns to LA. The fourth wheel in this scenario is Lothario Ridge Forrester, Nick's brother. We can see Ridge getting jelly if Tick hit it off again, and he won't stand for it. He is a supreme hypocrite and we predict he would make a beeline for Brooke if his feelings get hurt. Ridge has chosen Taylor over Brooke, but after the latter's showstopper fashion show moment he could get wandering eyes. Ridge have quite a history and she has actually begged him to take her back to no avail. Could Nick's return change that? Do you prefer Bridge or Tridge? Ridge claims he's committed to Taylor, but does he mean it? We could debate the silliness of two grown women fighting over a man who has treated them like dirt, but we'll save that for another time. Tell us what you think, B&B fans. Do you want Nick to choose Brooke or Taylor? Is one of these women better suited for Nick, or do you think he should steer clear of both of them? With Nick's return to LA, the fireworks are sure to erupt and threaten Tridge's relationship. Eric Forrester proves he's the master of the game. The bold and the beautiful reveal that Steffi Forrester has been all about sabotaging Ridge Forrester's relationship with Brooke Logan. Ever since Ridge helped to heal Taylor Hayes' broken heart, Steffi has interfered. Eric Forrester will show Steffi who is the master of the game. Steffi Forrester was furious about the showstopper surprise. Steffi may be the co-CEO of Forrester Creations, but that does not mean that Eric cannot pull a few tricks out when he needs to. After seeing the ending of the fashion show, Steffi wanted nothing more than to blame Brooke for inserting herself in a show where she didn't belong. However, Steffi was stunned to learn that the whole idea was Eric's and not Brooke's. Eric wanted Ridge to open his eyes and see who he belonged with. Eric knows that Ridge only chose Taylor because he was mad at Brooke. Eric also knows why Ridge is staying with Taylor. Steffi's manipulation is obvious to anyone with two eyes. However, two can play this game and Steffi is far from being the master at it. Eric Forrester offered a very lame excuse for his actions. Eric intended to make a point to show Ridge where he truly belongs, so he put Brooke in her retro wedding gown and let the dress work its magic. However, it didn't exactly have the desired effect since Ridge is still with Taylor. Eric offered Steffi a business excuse about tying the new Forrester and the old Forrester together. Eric more than proved his point on the business side because orders are pouring into Forrester Creations. Steffi certainly cannot object to anything that Eric says because it is the truth. Of course, it isn't Eric's only reason for having Brooke as the last model. Steffi saw this as a way to break up her parents and get Ridge and Brooke back together and called Eric on that fact. Eric Forrester has seen Ridge Forrester with both women. Eric has seen Ridge with both Brooke and Taylor. However, Eric sees Brooke as the key to Ridge's happiness. Eric is more than determined to open Ridge's eyes to what he sees. Steffi is literally getting a taste of her own medicine since she has been working against Brooke all of this time. Is Steffi about to learn the hard lesson when it comes to Forrester men? Steffi is trying to guilt-trip Ridge into staying with Taylor. However, eventually Steffi will learn that Brooke and Ridge are so much more than what she believes. Ridge and Brooke ain't the ones who belong together, but can it last this time without someone messing it up? Are Brooke and Ridge destiny after all? The bold and the beautiful, Ridge's explosive confrontation and the unraveling of manipulation. In a riveting crescendo of drama, The Bold and the Beautiful delivered an unforgettable moment as Ridge Forrester confronted his father, Eric, and ex-wife, Brooke Logan, over their orchestrated manipulation during Forrester Creations' recent fashion show. This confrontation, laden with decades of emotional baggage, marks a potential turning point in the show's labyrinthine relationships, exposing themes of nostalgia, authenticity, and the perilous consequences of manipulation. The Portofino ploy, nostalgia as a weapon. At the heart of the conflict lies Eric's calculated decision to resurrect Brooke's iconic Portofino gown, a symbol of her 2003 romance with Ridge during the fashion show's finale. By positioning Brooke as the showstopper, Eric aimed to weaponize nostalgia, hoping to rekindle Ridge by evoking memories of their passionate past. The gown, a relic of their once unbreakable bond, was strategically reimagined to manipulate Ridge's emotions, reducing their complex history to a theatrical stunt. For Eric, this was not merely a fashion statement but a desperate gambit to steer his son's heart. Having witnessed Ridge's perpetual vacillation between Brooke and Taylor Hayes, Eric viewed Brooke as the key to Ridge's happiness. His actions, however, crossed a line, transforming familial concern into paternal overreach. Brooke, ever eager to reclaim Ridge, embraced the ploy, insisting "the fashion world wants us together," a refrain that underscored her desperation. Yet, the plan spectacularly backfired when Ridge, initially moved by the spectacle, later recognized it as emotional coercion. Ridge's cathartic rebuke, "Life isn't your runway." Ridge's eruption, "You think life is your runway? It isn't," serves as the climax of years of pent-up frustration. His rejection of Eric and Brooke's machinations signifies a seismic shift in his character. Once a perennial waffler, Ridge now demands authenticity, refusing to be a pawn in others' games. This confrontation is not just about a dress, it's a rejection of the cyclical toxicity that has defined his relationships. The fallout is immediate and visceral. Eric, the patriarch accustomed to pulling strings, is left stunned as his son dismantles his manipulative tactics. Brooke, meanwhile, faces humiliation, her grand gesture exposed as a hollow performance. Ridge's outburst crystallizes a broader theme, the clash between curated illusions and the messiness of real human connection. In declaring life not a runway, Ridge champions raw truth over staged perfection, a poignant critique of soap opera tropes themselves. Brooke's crossroads, exit and reinvention. Ridge's rejection leaves Brooke at a precipice. The script hints at her potential departure from Forrester Creations, a workplace now saturated with heartache. Working alongside Ridge and sparring with Steffi Forrester may prove unbearable, pushing Brooke toward reinvention. Enter Nick Marone, her ex-husband, whose June return could offer Brooke both professional and romantic lifelines. Nick's reappearance injects fresh chaos. His history with Brooke and Taylor, including a convoluted paternity storyline involving their son, Jack, positions him as a wild card. While Brooke might seek solace in Nick, their reunion could reignite old tensions, particularly with Ridge. Notably, Ridge's hypocrisy looms large. If Nick rekindles ties with Brooke or Taylor, Ridge's newfound commitment to Taylor may waver, exposing his fragility. Generational warfare, Eric versus Steffi. Parallel to the romantic entanglements is a generational power struggle. Steffi, as co-CEO, has long undermined Brooke to protect her parents' reconciliation. Eric's fashion show gambit, however, outmaneuvers her, revealing his mastery of manipulation. By framing Brooke's runway moment as a business strategy, tying new Forrester to old, Eric masks his true agenda, leaving Steffi powerless to object amid surging sales. Their clash underscores a deeper tension, experience versus ambition. Eric, the seasoned patriarch, manipulates with subtlety, while Steffi's blunt tactics lack finesse. Yet Steffi's resolve remains unshaken. Her concerned glances during Brooke's runway walk foreshadowed this reckoning. As Eric doubles down on reuniting Bridge, Steffi's counterplays will test familial loyalties, potentially fracturing the Forresters further. Taylor's quiet triumph and Ridge's proposal. Amid the chaos, Taylor Hayes emerges as an unexpected victor. Her calm demeanor contrasts sharply with Brooke's theatrics, appealing to Ridge's craving for stability. Ridge's hinted proposal to Taylor a direct rebuttal to Eric's meddling could cement her position, but skepticism lingers. Is Ridge's choice genuine, or a reactive rebellion against manipulation? Taylor's journey from accidental storage room lockouts to potential fiancé highlights her resilience. Yet, her happiness remains precarious. Ridge's history of flip-flopping casts doubt on his sincerity, and Taylor's acceptance of his proposal would demand trust in a man notorious for betrayal. Nick's return, catalyst or curse? Nick Marone's comeback threatens to upend fragile alliances. His ties to Brooke and Taylor and Ridge's rivalry with him add combustible material. Should Nick reignite romance with Brooke, Ridge's jealousy might resurface, undermining his commitment to Taylor. Conversely, a Nick-Taylor pairing could provoke Steffi, destabilizing her parents' union. Nick's role extends beyond romance. He could catalyze Brooke's professional evolution. Partnering with her on Brooke's bedroom or new ventures might offer her an escape from Forrester's toxicity, symbolizing rebirth. Yet, in soap opera tradition, new beginnings often birth fresh conflicts. Themes: authenticity versus illusion. This storyline's core lies in the tension between authenticity and illusion. The fashion show, a metaphor for facades, becomes a battleground where characters confront their truths. Ridge's rejection of nostalgia-driven manipulation signals a desire to shed performative relationships, while Brooke's potential exit represents a retreat from pretense. Eric and Steffi's manipulations, though opposed, both exploit emotional vulnerabilities. Their strategies reflect a generational divide in handling power. Eric's subtlety versus Steffi's aggression, yet both risk alienating those they seek to control. Future implications: a new era for B&B? As Ridge gravitates toward Taylor and Brooke contemplates exit, the show teeters on transformation. A Ridge-Taylor union could end the Bridge-Tridge cycle, but lasting peace is unlikely in soap territory. Nick's return, Brooke's potential reinvention, and Steffi's retaliatory schemes promise turbulence. Eric's role as puppeteer may diminish, humbled by Ridge's defiance. Alternatively, he might redouble efforts, risking irreparable familial rifts. Brooke's journey, whether toward independence or new love, will test her growth beyond Ridge's shadow. The Bold and the Beautiful's complex history, Ridge Forrester's explosive reaction to Eric and Brooke's manipulative fashion show stunt detonated like a long-dormant volcano finally reaching its boiling point. In what can only be described as a masterclass in soap opera tension, Thursday's episode thrust viewers headfirst into the wreckage of a failed attempt at manufactured nostalgia, all centered on the reimagined Portofino gown and the storied history that accompanied it. The fallout wasn't just about fashion. It was about betrayal, legacy, and the exhaustion that comes from decades of emotional games. Ridge, long known for his indecisiveness and his tendency to bounce between the women in his life like a pendulum in a windstorm, finally snapped, and in doing so, he did what no one expected. He saw through the glossy veneer of sentimentality and called out the manipulation for exactly what it was. "You think life is your runway? It isn't," he snarled, his voice laced with righteous fury and a bitterness that's clearly been simmering beneath the surface for years. And in that one sentence, Ridge didn't just rebuke Eric and Brooke's calculated stunt, he condemned the very foundation of the Bridge legacy they had tried to revive, exposing it as hollow, outdated, and rooted in a past that no longer holds the same power over him. Eric's plan, while bold and visually spectacular, was a textbook example of emotional puppeteering. an elaborate charade designed to play on Ridge's memories, not his current feelings. The decision to substitute the original model with Brooke was neither spontaneous nor innocent. It was a targeted strike meant to exploit Ridge's soft spot for the glory days of Forrester creations and the romantic fantasy that once defined his relationship with Brooke. That fantasy, the moonlit kisses in Italy, the stolen glances across candlelit dinners, the sweeping declarations of love framed by haute couture and timeless gowns, is now crumbling under the weight of present-day reality. Ridge isn't that man anymore, and Brooke's appearance in the reimagined Portofino gown wasn't a resurrection of their love story, but a parody of it. The very idea that their relationship could be reignited by a costume and a spotlight reveals just how little faith Eric and Brooke have in the authenticity of their bond. They believed the illusion could replace emotional truth, and Ridge wasn't buying it. Brooke's repeated insistence that the fashion world wants us together rang hollow, increasingly desperate with each utterance, as though public opinion could somehow override private pain. It was a refrain that tried to tie their romance to the larger Forrester legacy, suggesting that their union wasn't just personal, but emblematic of an entire era, a living brand, if you will. But Ridge wasn't in the mood to be a walking advertisement for a fairytale that's long since faded. The problem with romanticizing the past is that it often ignores the lessons it taught. And Ridge, battered and wiser, made it clear that no amount of sequins, soft lighting, or nostalgic music cues would convince him to walk backward into a relationship built on curated memories rather than current emotional alignment. Brooke's theatrics, once her greatest asset, now read as insincere, her performance under the runway lights a little too polished, a little too orchestrated, not an act of love, but of strategy. What made the scene even more gut-wrenching was the look of genuine shock on Eric's face. The patriarch of Forrester creations, so used to being revered for his elegance and wisdom, found himself on the receiving end of his son's unfiltered rage. Eric believed he was doing the right thing, that he was guiding Ridge back to happiness, that by reminding him of the beauty he once shared with Brooke, he could reawaken feelings long dormant. But in his attempt to revive the past, he overlooked the possibility that Ridge no longer wants to live there. Eric's manipulation, though wrapped in good intentions, was a breach of trust, a father pulling the strings, forgetting that love can't be choreographed, not even with the perfect gown and the perfect woman under the perfect lights. Ridge's rebuke wasn't just about the runway moment, it was about the cumulative weight of years of being pushed, pulled, and played by his father, by Brooke, by the very world he helped build at Forrester.